They told her she wasn't even allowed to touch the rifle. She was just a cadet, a nobody in the shadow of legends. But when America's top snipers all missed the impossible shot at 2,000 meters, she stepped forward and pulled the trigger. The range went silent, the target shattered dead center, and a general whispered the words that flipped the Pentagon upside down. That was a signal shot, but cadets aren't supposed to know it. Who trained her? How did she inherit a secret only Tier-1 operators were meant to carry? And what happens when that secret collides with betrayal inside the Pentagon itself? Stay until the end, because the twist will blow your mind. And hit subscribe to A Simple Woman so you don't miss the next untold mission. The target center was obliterated. A neat hole burned clean through by the supersonic round. For a moment, no one moved. The echo of the shot rolled across the training range at Fort Dominion, bouncing off the steel barriers like a bell tolling for tradition. Every man and woman on the line froze. Rangers, SEALs, Marine snipers, each of them stunned into silence by what they had just witnessed. A cadet, a woman barely out of the academy dorms, had done what their decorated records had failed to achieve. Anna Mercer lowered the massive Barrett, its recoil still humming through her shoulders. Her breathing was steady, her stance solid, as if she had trained for years with the weapon. But the truth was harsher. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near it. Cadets were meant to watch, to learn, to take notes while legends fired. Yet here she was, her eyes locked on the target 1.25 miles away, the impossible now marked by her hand. General Richard Sloan's voice broke the silence, low but heavy enough to carry across the line. That wasn't luck, that was a signal shot. His words struck harder than the bullet itself. A ripple of unease traveled down the ranks. A signal shot, an unspoken test, a sniper's coded language, was something whispered only in Tier 1 units. It was not a trick, not a coincidence, not something a cadet could stumble into. Major Victor Kane reacted before anyone else. His boots thundered on the platform as he marched forward, his face red with outrage, his voice sharp enough to slice steel. "This is a disgrace," he barked. "Cadets are forbidden from touching the rifles, let alone firing them. She broke protocol in front of the entire Joint Task Force." His words snapped men out of their stupor, and the murmurs began. Protocol breach, violation. Anna stood her ground, though her stomach churned with the weight of every eye upon her. She had known what would follow the moment she pulled the trigger. The whisper of her grandfather's lessons echoed in her head. Samuel Mercer's voice, calm, unshakable. "If they doubt you, let the bullet speak." She had obeyed. Now she would pay. Colonel Helena Brooks stepped in, her tone even, though her sharp gaze flicked between Kane and Sloan. "Major, the shot was extraordinary. She may have broken protocol, but she also proved a skill we would be foolish to ignore." Kane wheeled on her, eyes blazing. "Skill? You call that skill?" "It was a stunt, an accident. Do you know what happens when we start rewarding accidents? Men die. You want to make a cadet into a hero, then watch her crumble when the next bullet doesn't land." Sloan raised a hand, silencing the growing tension. His weathered face betrayed nothing, but his eyes lingered on Anna with a glint of something. Curiosity, perhaps recognition. He had fought beside Samuel Mercer in jungles half a world away, had seen the way the man carved his legend into history with calm trigger pulls that rewrote battles. And now, here stood his granddaughter, pulling ghosts from the past into the present with a single shot. "Cadet Mercer," Sloan said at last, his voice steady. "Explain yourself." Anna swallowed hard, the desert air dry in her throat. "Sir, I only asked for a chance when all others had failed. I believed I could make the shot." Kane erupted with bitter laughter. "Believed? Belief doesn't save lives, girl. Precision does. Training does. And you have neither." Anna's eyes flicked toward him, unflinching. "With respect, Major, the target disagrees." Gasps rippled along the line. It was insolence, bold and dangerous, yet it was the truth. Kane's face darkened, veins standing in his temples. "You think one shot makes you something? I'll prove to everyone here you're nothing but your grandfather's shadow. And by the time I'm done, not even his name will protect you." Brooks opened her mouth to protest, but Sloan's hands stopped her again. The general's gaze remained fixed on Anna. "We'll see," he said simply before turning away. His words were neither condemnation nor absolution, but a sentence suspended in air. The murmurs grew louder as the soldiers began to disperse, shaking their heads, exchanging whispers. Anna could feel their judgment pressing against her skin. Some were impressed, others disgusted. All of them would remember. Kane lingered, stepping closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your life, Mercer. You think this army respects accidents? I'll make sure the only place you'll be firing from is behind a desk." Anna said nothing. She simply looked past him, out toward the target still marked by her bullet. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying the faint scent of gunpowder. For a brief, fleeting moment, she allowed herself to feel what it meant to succeed. Then the weight of Kane's threat settled over her, cold and unyielding. As the sun dipped lower over Fort Dominion, the range returned to silence. But beneath that silence, Anna knew the storm had already begun. One shot had changed everything, and there would be no turning back. The dining hall at Fort Dominion buzzed with the usual evening noise. Boots dragging on tile, metal trays clattering, the low rumble of conversations weaving into one another. But tonight, the noise shifted when Anna Mercer walked in. Conversations dulled, eyes followed her, whispers cut sharper than knives. Her shot earlier that day had traveled farther than the round itself. The whole base was talking about the cadet who dared pull the trigger. She kept her chin high, refusing to show the unease crawling beneath her skin. She was used to whispers. Growing up with the Mercer name meant people always expected more, demanded more, doubted more. Still, the eyes of Rangers, Marines, and fellow cadets burned hotter than ever tonight. At the center table sat Major Victor Kane, flanked by a cluster of senior cadets eager to bask in his authority. Kane's voice boomed across the hall, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Well, if it isn't the miracle shot herself. "Mercer, how does it feel to prove that even accidents can get applause?" Laughter rippled from his table, feeding off his venom. Anna steadied her tray, walking past him without reaction, but Kane wasn't finished. He leaned back in his chair, projecting his words like a commander on parade. "Let me tell you all a story. Years ago, her grandfather, Samuel Mercer, was paraded as a legend. White Feather, they called him, a sniper who turned myths into medals. But do you know what happens when a legend dies? His shadow falls on the next of kin, and here she is, living proof that shadows can't shoot straight without luck." The hall erupted in snickers, forks tapping trays like applause. Anna froze, the words striking deeper than bullets. Colonel Helena Brooks sat at a far table, her jaw tightening as she watched. She wanted to intervene, but she knew Kane's venom thrived on spectacle. To rise now would only feed his theater. Instead, she locked eyes with Anna, a silent message: stand tall. Kane wasn't finished. He gestured to a cadet beside him. "Stand up, Harris. Tell the room how many hours you've trained with the Barrett." The young man stood nervously. 200 hours, sir." Kane smirked, his gaze cutting to Anna. 200 hours. And yet Mercer strolls in with 0, picks up the rifle like a child playing dress-up. And we're supposed to call it skill? No, ladies and gentlemen, what we saw today wasn't talent. It was a fluke. The laughter returned, sharper this time. Anna's grip tightened on the tray until her knuckles whitened. The easy thing would be to lash back, to spit fire the way her grandfather might have on the battlefield. But she remembered Sloan's eyes, calm and watchful, and Brooks's silent plea. Words could wait. Bullets would answer later. Kane leaned forward, his voice lowering but still carrying. "Mark my words, Mercer. Tomorrow I'll show this base exactly what happens when a shadow pretends to be a sniper. You'll crumble, and I'll make sure everyone watches." The cadets around him grinned, hungry for the humiliation to come. Anna turned, finally meeting his stare. Her voice was quiet but clear, every syllable cutting through the noise. "Then tomorrow, Major, I hope you're ready to watch closely." The hall went still for a heartbeat. Then laughter returned, though thinner this time, uneasy at her defiance. Anna walked away, placing her tray at an empty corner table. She ate in silence, back straight, eyes forward, refusing to show the storm inside. Outside the hall, Kane's voice carried once more, loud enough to echo across the courtyard. Cadet Mercer thinks she can inherit greatness. Tomorrow, I'll prove she inherited nothing but a name. The cadets erupted in cheers, their voices chanting like a cruel chorus. Mercer's luck! Mercer's luck! The chant followed her out into the night, mocking, relentless. Anna returned to her quarters, closing the door softly behind her. Only then did she allow her breath to shake. She opened the small wooden box by her bed, fingers brushing the empty space where her grandfather's engraved bullet had once rested. The Kaivat was gone, stolen. Kane's cruelty wasn't limited to words. He was dismantling her piece by piece. But as the chants still echoed faintly from outside, Anna whispered to herself the same words Samuel Mercer once told her under a quiet sky: when the world laughs at you, let your next shot be the silence they can't ignore. She clenched her jaw. Tomorrow, Kane wanted a show. She would give him one, but not the kind he expected. Morning haze clung to the training field as cadets and officers gathered in a rough semicircle. The anticipation was electric, whispers skimming through the crowd like sparks before a storm. Major Victor Kane stood in the center, his posture rigid, his grin predatory. Behind him lay a row of 5 rifles, each different, each set at a different range, their barrels gleaming under the weak sun. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kane announced, his voice booming across the field, "today we separate flukes from fighters. Our cadet Miracle here claims yesterday's shot was skill. Well, let's see if lightning strikes twice." He gestured at the weapons: 5 rifles, 5 targets, 5 distances, and 5 minutes. Cadet Mercer will fire 1 shot from each. If she misses even once, we'll all know yesterday was nothing but luck. The crowd buzzed with cruel anticipation. Some cadets smirked openly, others shifted uneasily, but all eyes burned into Anna Mercer as she stepped forward. Colonel Helena Brooks crossed her arms at the edge of the circle, her jaw set. She knew Kane was stacking the deck. Each rifle was unfamiliar, different weights, different optics, different quirks that took weeks to master, and 5 minutes was barely enough to settle her breathing, let alone calibrate each shot. Anna approached the first rifle, her heartbeat steady but heavy. The Barrett yesterday had been a leap of instinct, a memory etched from childhood moments with her grandfather. This was different. This was Kane's arena. "Time starts now," Kane barked. The stopwatch beeped. Anna dropped to prone, aligned the first scope, and squeezed. The crack split the air, the target at 400 meters crumpling instantly. Cheers erupted, a mix of awe and disbelief. She rolled to the second rifle, a lighter M110. She adjusted quickly, compensated for crosswind, and fired. Another hit, the target jerking back. "2 for 2, someone muttered. "Maybe she's real after all." Kane's smile didn't falter. He folded his arms, waiting. Anna moved to the third weapon, an older bolt action with a stiff trigger. She inhaled, exhaled, squeezed. The bullet slammed into the silhouette at 800 meters. Cheers grew louder, the tide shifting. Sweat pricked her forehead. 3 down, 2 to go. The fourth rifle was heavier, its scope fogged slightly, the adjustment stiff. She worked fast, conscious of the seconds bleeding away. Her shot rang out, the steel plate at 1,200 meters clanging in response. The crowd erupted, disbelief giving way to excitement. 4 for 4. Kane's smirk tightened, his jaw stiff. Anna crawled to the last rifle, a long, unfamiliar beast. The target stood at 1,600 meters, nearly invisible through the shimmering air. Her pulse quickened. She set the stock against her shoulder, eye pressed to glass. The crosshairs wavered. She adjusted, breath shallow, hands trembling from fatigue. 30 seconds! Kane shouted. She bit down on her panic, recalling her grandfather's words. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. She steadied, squeezed. The crack echoed. The round cut the distance, slicing the sky, and missed. The steel plate stood untouched, mocking her with its silence. The stopwatch beeped. Time expired. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Kane's laughter broke the air, sharp and triumphant. And there it is. 4 lucky shots and 1 failure. That's who you are, Mercer. A shadow with cracks. The crowd followed, jeering, their voices rising in a cruel chorus. Mercer's luck, Mercer's luck. The chant returned, louder than before. Anna's face remained calm, but inside her chest caved. The sting of failure cut deeper than the mockery. Her grandfather's lessons had carried her through storms, but they couldn't shield her from this, her first true defeat in front of them all. Colonel Brooks's gaze found her through the noise, steady, unyielding. It said what her lips could not. 1 miss doesn't define you, but it will define how you rise. Anna stood slowly, brushing dust from her uniform. She didn't flinch, didn't argue. She only looked back at the untouched target shimmering in the distance, searing the failure into her memory like a scar. Major Kane stepped close, his voice low, cruel. Remember this moment, Mercer. It's the only truth you'll ever carry. That when it counts, you fall short. Anna met his eyes, her voice quiet but steady. We'll see, Major. The crowd's laughter chased her off the field, but deep inside, something else stirred. Not despair, but resolve. If failure was the price of growth, then she would pay it. And when the time came, her next bullet would not miss. Night settled over Fort Dominion like a heavy cloak, the barracks glowing faintly under rows of harsh floodlights. Anna Mercer sat on the edge of her cot, her body aching from the day's humiliation, her mind still replaying the miss that Kane had etched into every cadet's memory. The chants of Mercer's luck echoed like ghosts in her ears. She opened the wooden box beside her bed, reaching for the one thing that always steadied her, the engraved bullet her grandfather had left her. Her fingers met empty space. Anna froze, heart skipping. She searched again, frantic, lifting the cloth, turning the box upside down. Nothing. The bullet was gone. A chill raced down her spine. That bullet wasn't just metal. It was Samuel Mercer's legacy. He had etched a single symbol into its casing, a feather carved with a steady hand in the jungles of Vietnam. It was the story of her bloodline, the weight of every lesson he had whispered under quiet skies. Without it, she felt stripped, exposed. She pushed to her feet, scanning the room. Her belongings had been sifted through, the faint displacement of uniforms and books obvious to her trained eye. Someone had been here. Someone wanted her to know. Outside in the corridor, voices carried. Cadets laughed, the cruel rhythm of their mockery spilling into the night. But beneath it, Anna heard something else, a whisper of footsteps retreating down the stairwell, calculated, deliberate. She followed, silent, until the trail ended in the courtyard. There, under the dim glow of a lamp, Major Victor Kane leaned against a railing, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. His eyes lifted as if he had been waiting. He smirked. "Lose something, Mercer?" he asked, exhaling smoke. Anna's stomach twisted. She didn't answer, but her silence betrayed enough. Kane chuckled, shaking his head. "You Mercers think heirlooms make you special. That little trinket of your grandfather's, it won't save you when the barrel rises. All it does is remind the rest of us how deep his shadow runs." Her fists clenched. "Where is it?" Kane tapped ash onto the ground. "Safe, for now. Maybe I'll give it back when you prove you deserve it. Or maybe I'll melt it down and let the legend of White Feather vanish with the smoke." The words cut deeper than the theft. For Kane, it wasn't just about breaking her, it was about erasing the Mercer name altogether. Colonel Helena Brooks appeared from the far side of the courtyard, her boots striking the pavement with purpose. "Major," she said sharply, "your theatrics are becoming predictable." Kane straightened, the smirk fading but his defiance intact. "Just keeping cadets honest, Colonel." Brooks's eyes narrowed. "Honest or broken? There's a difference. And one day, the line you're walking will swallow you." Kane flicked his cigarette away, retreating into the shadows without another word. Brooks turned to Anna, her expression softer now. "Come with me. They walked in silence until they reached her office. Inside, Brooks opened a locked cabinet and retrieved a worn folder. She placed it on the desk, sliding it toward Anna. "You want to know why Kane is so determined to bury you? Why Sloan whispered about a signal shot?" Anna's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were faded documents, yellowed with time, stamped with classifications long since declassified only in appearance. At the top of one page, Operation Silent Feather. Brooks leaned against the desk, her voice low. "Your grandfather didn't just serve. He rewrote the doctrine. Samuel Mercer was the first to codify the signal shot, a mark not just of precision but of command. It was how he led teams in the field without radios. One shot, placed with intent, carried messages only his men could read." Anna's breath caught. She remembered faint flashes of her childhood, sitting on her grandfather's porch, his hand guiding hers on a rifle stock, his voice steady. "Every bullet tells a story. Learn to write one only your brothers can read." Brooks continued. "Kane's father competed against your grandfather decades ago. He lost, and with that loss went a career that could have reached these walls. Kane inherited the grudge. And now he wants to prove Samuel Mercer was nothing but a myth, and that you're even less." Anna closed the folder, the weight of revelation pressing down on her. Her humiliation today wasn't just about her. It was the continuation of a war between legacies, fought in shadows across generations. Brooks's eyes softened. "The signal shot isn't luck, Anna. It's a language, one your grandfather spoke fluently, and whether you want it or not, it's in your blood. But you'll have to decide. Are you going to let Kane write your story for you, or will you fire the shot that writes your own?" Anna tightened her grip on the folder, her resolve hardening. The bullet was gone, stolen, but the lessons etched into her bones remained. Kane wanted her broken, erased. She would show him what a Mercer's silence looked like, sharper than laughter, heavier than legacy, and deadlier than doubt. The orders came down 3 days later, crisp and irrefutable. Cadet Anna Mercer's name was printed on the roster for the Interbranch Sniper Invitational, a competition normally reserved for elite operators, SEALs, Rangers, Marine Raiders, Delta shooters. Cadets never made the list, yet there it was, her name glaring from the page like a spotlight she hadn't asked for. The announcement rippled through the base like wildfire. Some cadets gawked, whispering that her miracle shot had gotten her pushed onto the roster. Others sneered, saying Kane had arranged it to prove she'd crumble when it mattered most. Either way, no one believed she belonged there. Anna stood stiff at the board, her heart pounding, when Major Victor Kane appeared behind her. His smile was venomous, his words pitched low but sharp. "Congratulations, Mercer. You wanted to play sniper? Now you'll have the whole damn military watching when you fail." She turned to face him, steadying her voice. "I didn't ask for this." "No," Kane agreed, "but you earned it, and you'll choke under it. I've made sure of that." His grin widened before he walked away, leaving her with a cold certainty that he had indeed set the stage. The day of the competition dawned with the air crackling like static. Fort Bragg's training grounds had been transformed into a gauntlet of ranges, each challenge harsher than the last. Bleachers filled with officers, cadets, and Pentagon observers. Cameras broadcast live feeds to screens across the field, ensuring every shot would be scrutinized, every miss amplified. Anna stepped onto the line, her boots crunching gravel. Her competitors were men and women with years in combat, eyes weathered from deserts and mountains she had only read about. Chief Logan Ward, a SEAL sniper with a reputation like steel, adjusted his scope with the casual grace of someone who had stared death in the face too many times to flinch. He gave her a nod, not mocking, not friendly, simply acknowledging her presence. Kane loomed over the staging area, clipboard in hand, his grin ever present. He had personally overseen the equipment distribution, and when Anna reached her station, she saw it. The rifle assigned to her was a customized bolt action with mismatched optics, the scope slightly off-center. To the untrained eye, it looked fine, but Anna's stomach tightened. This weapon was sabotaged. She lifted it, feeling the imbalance in its weight. The adjustments were stiff, the reticle drifting half a hair low. At long distance, half a hair meant complete failure. "Problem, cadet?" Kane asked loudly, drawing eyes from the crowd. Anna forced her face into calm neutrality. "No, sir. Ready to fire." The whistle blew, the first challenge, 600 meters, steel silhouettes hidden among decoys. Competitors dropped into prone, rifles barking in rhythmic succession. Anna adjusted quickly, compensating for the skewed optics by instinct. She aimed just above the target's center and squeezed. The plate rang true. A ripple of murmurs moved through the bleachers. She had hit. She moved through the next distances, 700, 800, 900 meters, fighting the rifle more than the targets. Every shot demanded calculation beyond the norm, adjusting not just for wind, but for Kane's sabotage. Each hit won her grudging silence from the crowd, each clang of steel echoing like defiance. But the sabotage began to take its toll. Sweat gathered on her brow as seconds bled away. Competitors finished their sets with smooth efficiency, while Anna wrestled every bullet into line. By the fourth stage, her timing slipped. Her round snapped wide, missing the plate at 1,100 meters. Kane's laughter carried across the field, sharp and triumphant. "There it is, the fluke revealed." The crowd stirred, some jeering, others whispering doubt. Anna's jaw clenched. She steadied, forced her breath slow, adjusted for the rifle's lies. She fired again, the shot landing true. But the damage was done. She had missed once, and in this arena, one miss was blood in the water. Chief Ward completed his round flawlessly, his hits crisp and decisive. When he rose, he didn't gloat. He simply glanced at Anna with a soldier's recognition. He knew what she was fighting, even if the crowd did not. By the final stage, Anna's arms trembled, her focus razor-thin. The last target shimmered in the distance, 1,400 meters in unstable wind. She inhaled, recalling her grandfather's mantra, "Slow is smooth, smooth is fast." She compensated for the crooked reticle, for the wind's deceit, for Kane's sabotage. Her shot cracked. The plate rang. A hit. Gasps erupted, followed by a swell of reluctant applause. Kane's smile faltered, just slightly, but his voice barked over the noise. "She still missed once. Remember that. One miss in combat is death." Anna lowered the rifle, sweat streaking her temples, chest heaving. She had survived the sabotage, but the truth was clear. Kane wasn't finished. This was only the beginning of his game, and as she left the line, the engraved bullet her grandfather had left her, stolen, hidden, burned in her thoughts. Kane had her legacy, her reputation, and now the Pentagon's eyes locked on her next move. The competition wasn't just about skill anymore, it was war. The roar of the crowd faded into a dull hum as Anna stepped off the firing line. The scoreboard flashed her standing, still in the running but behind. One miss, one slip was all Kane needed to feed the narrative he had sharpened like a blade. Whispers swirled around her as she walked past the bleachers. She cracked. A Mercer without the magic. One hit away from proving Kane right. The words pressed against her chest, heavier than the rifle she carried. She forced herself to keep her head high, but inside, her confidence crumbled. She ducked into the equipment tent, away from the noise, away from the cameras. Her hands shook as she stripped off her gloves, the fabric damp with sweat. She pressed her palms against her eyes, willing the pressure to hold back the storm rising inside her. For the first time since arriving at Fort Dominion, doubt truly gripped her throat. Samuel Mercer's voice used to echo in those moments, calm, patient, unshakable. But tonight, only silence answered her. The engraved bullet, her anchor, was still missing. The thought that Kane might already have destroyed it hollowed her chest further. If the symbol of her grandfather's lessons was gone, then maybe so was her right to stand here. She heard the tent flap rustle. A shadow crossed the dim light, and a gravelly voice broke the quiet. "You shoot like him." Anna looked up sharply. Standing in the entrance was Chief Mason Holt, his frame broad, his beard streaked with grey, eyes hardened by decades in places no one spoke of. A Navy SEAL sniper, long retired from the field but never from memory. His reputation whispered across bases as the man who once followed Samuel Mercer through jungles and deserts. Anna straightened, embarrassed to be caught unraveling. Sir Holt stepped forward, pulling something from the pocket of his jacket. He held it out in his calloused palm. A single bullet, worn from years of handling, gleamed faintly. Its casing bore the tiny feather engraving her grandfather had carved. Anna's breath caught. "How?" "He gave it to me," Holt interrupted. His voice was low, steady. "Said I'd know when to return it. Today seems like the time." Her hands trembled as she reached for it. The cool brass pressing into her skin like a heartbeat returned. She swallowed hard, emotion rising. "I thought it was stolen." Holt's eyes hardened, his gaze flicking toward the bleachers where Kane still prowled. "It was." He tried, but some things can't be kept from where they belong. Anna closed her fist around the bullet, its weight grounding her in a way nothing else could. Holt leaned closer, his voice meant only for her. "I was there when your grandfather fired the first signal shot. We thought it was suicide, one man, one rifle, holding off an entire flank. But he fired, and with that single round he told us exactly where to move, exactly how to live. He wrote the language you just spoke on that range. Don't let Kane turn it into silence." Anna blinked back tears. "I missed. One shot doesn't define you," Holt said firmly. "But the next one will. You carry his blood, but more than that, you carry your own will. Samuel never fought for glory. He fought to bring men home. What are you fighting for?" She looked down at the bullet in her hand, her reflection warped in the brass. For years, she had believed the Mercer legacy was a weight she could never bear. But holding the Kaivat now, she felt it differently, not as a shackle, but as a torch passed forward. Anna slipped the bullet into the pocket over her heart, straightening her shoulders. The roar of the crowd outside swelled again as another competitor finished his round. She stepped past Holt, her stride steadier than it had been all day. "Where are you going?" Holt asked. Anna looked back, her jaw set, eyes clear. "To fight for my own story." When she emerged from the tent, the floodlights caught her face, and the whispers hushed just slightly. Something in her carriage had shifted. The cadet who had walked off broken minutes earlier now walked back toward the firing line with the weight of history in her pocket and fire in her eyes. Major Kane spotted her return, his smirk curling. He thought he had buried her spirit in humiliation and whispers. But when he saw the calm in her step, his confidence flickered. Anna Mercer was no longer carrying just her grandfather's shadow, she was carrying herself. And the next shot would not be for proving Kane wrong, it would be for proving she was more than his grudge, more than her bloodline. It would be for writing a story no one could steal. Floodlights blazed over Fort Bragg's final range, turning the night sky into a pale imitation of daylight. The bleachers brimmed with officers, cadets, and Pentagon observers, flown in to witness the climax of the Interbranch Sniper Invitational. This was no longer a competition. It had become a proving ground. Anna Mercer stepped onto the line, the engraved bullet pressed against her chest in the pocket of her uniform. Each breath steadied her pulse, each step sharpened her focus. Across from her, Chief Logan Ward, the SEAL sniper whose name carried the weight of battlefields from Kandahar to Mosul, adjusted his rifle with unhurried precision. He didn't need to win respect, he already embodied it. The contrast was stark. A cadet with whispers of shame at her back versus a veteran carved from steel. The announcer's voice thundered over the loudspeakers. Final challenge, dynamic battlefield simulation. Targets at multiple ranges, moving and concealed. Wind gusts variable. Competitors have 10 minutes. Highest accuracy wins. Ward gave her a nod. Not arrogance, not pity, just recognition, soldier to soldier. Anna returned it with a slight dip of her chin. The whistle shrieked. Both dropped into prone. The range erupted in chaos. Silhouettes darted along rails. Steel plates swung unpredictably. Smoke grenades spewed haze. Ward's rifle cracked in rhythmic succession, each shot efficient, merciless. His rounds found targets with machine-like consistency. Anna inhaled. The sabotage rifle from earlier had been replaced. This one was clean, but the conditions were brutal. She tracked the first silhouette through smoke, squeezed. A clang rang out, the plate jerking back. Her next shot cut through gusting wind, striking just off-center but still true. The crowd murmured. She moved faster, weaving her rhythm between Ward's steady fire. Sweat trickled down her neck, but her mind was sharp, her focus anchored by the bullet over her heart. Halfway through, she stumbled, a miss, the bullet shattering dirt inches from the target. Gasps rippled across the stands. Kane's voice rose above the din, triumphant. There it is, she's cracking again. Anna shut out the noise. One shot doesn't define you, the next one will. Holt's words echoed, and she realigned. Her breathing slowed. She fired again. Steel rang true. The scoreboard ticked upward. Ward remained ahead, but the gap was closing. Anna pushed harder, her pace matching his, her accuracy tightening with each pull of the trigger. Then the floodlights flickered. Screens around the range glitched, static rolling across the live feed. Officers exchanged tense glances. Suddenly, alarms wailed, a shrill, grating sound that silenced even the crowd. Colonel Brooks sprinted toward the command tent, her radio crackling. "Report," a voice answered, panicked. "Cyber intrusion. Live data feed compromised. Someone's pulling files on sniper protocols." The words froze Anna mid-breath. Someone was stealing the competition's data, the training metrics, the targeting systems, everything. Pentagon's secrets siphoned in real time. The range descended into chaos. Technicians scrambled, generals barked orders. The announcer tried to regain control, but the whistle shrilled again, demanding competitors finish the course. The duel continued under the storm. Anna's rifle cracked again and again, her shots finding steel through the noise. But her eyes flicked to the command tent, where Kane loomed beside a senior intelligence officer. His grin was too calm for the chaos. Brooks returned, her face ashen. "The breach isn't from outside," she whispered to Sloan. "It's internal. A Pentagon clearance code is transmitting the files." General Sloan's jaw tightened. "Who?" The answer flashed onto the technician's screen, a single name that dropped like a bomb. The senior intelligence officer standing beside Kane, Colonel Robert Hensley, had authorized the transfer. Gasps erupted. Sloan's voice boomed. "We have a traitor in these walls." Kane's smirk faltered as soldiers closed in on Hensley. The colonel's face twisted, not in panic but in satisfaction. "You think you can bury Black Dagger forever? They already know. And now they know she's alive." His eyes darted toward Anna. Anna's stomach dropped. The hack wasn't random. It had been about her, about the signal shot, about Samuel Mercer's bloodline. She was the target. Ward fired his last round, hitting clean. The scoreboard froze, tallying scores. Anna had one shot left, the final target swaying at 1,500 meters through shifting wind. She inhaled, pressing her chest against the ground, feeling the bullet against her heart. The crowd fell silent. Generals shouted orders around her. MPs wrestled Hensley to the ground. But in Anna's world, only the target existed. She lined up the reticle, adjusted for the gust, and squeezed. The crack tore through the night. The bullet sailed, curved with the wind, and struck dead center. The plate rang like a bell, echoing across the chaos. The scoreboard blinked. Ward first place, Mercer second, silver. But the roar that erupted wasn't for standings. It was for the cadet who had turned a battlefield of sabotage, whispers, and betrayal into proof. General Sloan's voice cut through the din, steady and grave. "This isn't about medals anymore. This is about a cadet who just became the Pentagon's most valuable and most hunted asset." Anna lowered her rifle, her chest rising with heavy breaths. Around her, the competition dissolved into shouts, arrests, and alarms. She knew the truth now. Her fight wasn't against Kane or even Ward. It was against shadows inside the Pentagon itself. and those shadows had just seen her fire a signal they would never forget. The chaos of the range slowly ebbed into a tense, unsettled quiet. Hensley was dragged away in cuffs, his face a mask of defiance even as soldiers pressed him to the ground. Kane stood frozen at the edge of the command tent, his smirk gone, his career unraveling by association. And through it all, Anna Mercer stood with her rifle lowered, her chest rising and falling as the reality of what had just happened sank in. The Pentagon observers who had flown in expecting a spectacle of skill had instead witnessed treachery and revelation. Yet even amid the betrayal, one truth remained undeniable. A cadet had stood against legends and shadows alike and carved her own name into the record. General Sloan approached her on the range, his boots crunching gravel, his expression heavy but resolute. He stopped before her, studying her with the eyes of a man who had once watched her grandfather fire signal shots that turned battles. Slowly, he extended his hand. "Cadet Mercer," he said, his gravelly voice carrying over the stunned crowd, "the Pentagon will not forget what you did here tonight. You may not hold gold, but you hold something rarer, proof that the blood of Samuel Mercer carries forward." Anna clasped his hand, the weight of his words grounding her more than the cheers that followed. It wasn't victory, not exactly, but it was recognition. And in the army, recognition was a weapon as sharp as any rifle. Later, in a small ceremony away from cameras, Colonel Brooks pinned a silver commendation on Anna's uniform. Chief Logan Ward himself shook her hand, his grip firm, his voice quiet but sincere. "You've got the instinct," he told her. "Don't waste it. The war out there doesn't care about medals, it cares about survivors." Chief Mason Holt stood by, watching silently until the others had gone. Then he stepped forward, producing a small envelope. He pressed it into Anna's hand. "Found this tucked under the bleachers after the chaos. I think it was meant for you." Confused, Anna opened it. Inside was a single bullet, identical to her grandfather's but newly engraved. Her name, a Mercer, was carved into the brass in sharp, deliberate strokes. Her breath caught. Holt's jaw tightened. "That wasn't from me, and it sure as hell wasn't from your grandfather." Anna closed her fist around the bullet, the metal biting into her palm. A message, clear and cold. Someone out there wasn't finished with her. That night, after the base had quieted and the floodlights dimmed, Anna drove out of Fort Bragg in a plain military sedan. The road stretched ahead, empty under the thin silver wash of the moon. The commendation still pinned to her chest felt weightless compared to the bullet burning in her pocket. She checked her rearview mirror and froze. A pair of headlights glowed half a mile back, a black SUV, windows tinted, steady and patient. It had been there since she pulled onto the road, never gaining, never falling back, just following. Her grip tightened on the steering wheel. Her instincts screamed what her mind already knew. This wasn't coincidence. Anna pressed the accelerator, merging into the sparse flow of night traffic. The SUV mirrored her every move. Her grandfather's words returned to her, whispers in the silence of the car. Every bullet tells a story. The question is, who's writing this one? Anna's jaw clenched. The Pentagon had recognized her, yes. But the moment she fired that signal shot, she had stepped out of the shadows and into a war she could neither see nor control. In her pocket, the bullet with her name cut against her skin like a warning. The black SUV stayed in her mirror, steady, relentless. The road stretched on, dark and uncertain, and Anna Mercer, no longer just a cadet, no longer just a granddaughter of legend, realized her story was only beginning. She wasn't supposed to touch the rifle. She wasn't supposed to make that impossible shot. And she definitely wasn't supposed to survive a rigged competition, a sabotage, and the revelation of a Pentagon traitor. But Anna Mercer did all of it. And now, she's driving into the night with a bullet engraved with her name and a black SUV glued to her mirror. Here's the part that should keep you up tonight. The real battle hasn't even started. Because the second she fired that signal shot, she told the world two things. She carries the Mercer bloodline, and she refuses to break. But someone out there is writing her next chapter in brass and steel, and they've already marked her as a target. So what do you think? Was Anna reckless for stepping up, or was she the only one brave enough to carry forward a legacy everyone else wanted buried? And more importantly, what would you have done if the bullet with your name showed up in your pocket? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them. Smash that like button if Anna's story pulled you in, and hit subscribe to A Simple Woman so you never miss the untold battles, the hidden betrayals, and the impossible choices still to come. Trust me, the next mission will shock you even more.